Thank y'all for joining us today for this special EdTech leadership panel called Ignite Opportunity with AI and Accessibility. It's an honor to have these passionate leaders and decision makers in one room, ready to engage in a meaningful conversation about the challenges and opportunities shaping the future of learning. Our session is designed to explore some late night thoughts that keep us up at night, specifically around the topics of AI and accessibility. Together in this session, we'll delve into the possibilities, the pitfalls, and the pearls of wisdom around this hot topic that is touching us all. We are fortunate to have an incredible panel of thought leaders with us today, each bringing a unique perspective and a wealth of experience. First up is Dee Lanier. Yeah, you can clap. That's good. I would. Dee is an award-winning educator, author of Demarginalizing Design, a TEDx speaker, a Google trainer, and innovator, and he's incredibly passionate about equity and inquiry-based learning. He facilitates global racial equity and culturally responsible PD through design thinking. Dee, who holds sociology degrees, also created Solve in Time and Maker Kitchen, and he also co-hosts the Liberated Educator podcast. Thanks for being here, Dee.
Is that big?
Second up is Dr. LeeAnn Lindsey. She advocates for a new approach to digital citizenship education, empowering students to become effective digital decision makers. She contributed to the ISTE standards for students and educators, thank you. And LeeAnn currently serves as the Director of EdTech and Innovation for the Arizona Institute for Education and the Economy, whose work is situated at the intersection of pre-K-12, higher education, and the workforce, and aims to accelerate transformation across the P20 continuum. She also has led the charge, I like this one, with the Arizona AI Guidance by being led by the Northern Arizona University and helped spearhead the Arizona AI Alliance, which is comprised of 15 organizations across the state of Arizona. Thank you. Thank you. And lastly is Todd Sepulveda, who is the Director of Instructional Technology in Cypress Fairbanks ISD. This man has a wealth of experience in education, previously serving as a curriculum management systems coordinator and an assistant principal in the district. He's passionate about the role of technology in enhancing learning experiences and fostering strong relationships in the education community. A very well-rounded panel here. Give it up for the panel, y'all. These are some of the most thoughtful voices in education today, and I'm thrilled to share this space with them. So everybody get settled in, get comfortable, turn on your portable fans, because we're gonna get some inspiration and insights as we navigate this journey today. You ready?
Yes. Yeah.
This question I'm gonna ask to all three of you, so light up your brains. How does AI fundamentally change daily learning for diverse students compared to a couple of years ago? Is there anything you notice now that's like a profound difference now that AI is here? And I'll start with you. Any profound things you've noticed?
I don't know if I want to call it profound, but I will say, and by the way, it wasn't in the bio, but I'll share. So I also co-authored the book, The Promises and Perils of AI in Education with Ken Shelton. And we talk about this a little bit in the book, but considering what I see as opportunity, and the question is will teachers take advantage of the opportunity, or will they utilize AI to do more of the same? And so what we have in our education system, by and large, speaking generally, we have rampant, not only inaccessibility, which I think we will definitely be talking about, but we have discrimination, we have lack of tailored to the cultural opportunities of connection points with students. So what we have is a disproportionate rate of criminalization within our education system, particularly for students of color. So these are all like things that we know. And so utilized wrongly, we can just press the fast forward button and accelerate and exacerbate these existing problems, right? So that is the fearful thing or a potential peril, but the opportunity is what does it look like to utilize AI for a teacher in particular to say, you know what, these things that I've been doing in a way to try and get to know my students, to have them write little personal journal entries for them to tell me about some of their interests, for me to do all of these things, has been a helpful thing in the past, but now I can potentially utilize AI in order to summarize and analyze some of the connection points that I may have missed, and also identify opportunities within my lesson plans to cater some of those instructions and some of the examples, all of those things for those students. And so learning from AI, and I know that sounds weird, but learning from AI as an educator is an opportunity. Unfortunately, again, if all we do is just continue more of the same, then what we have is what we've always had. And that is, we're just going to catch kids cheating instead of teaching them how to utilize these tools effectively and ethically, and for the teachers to look at how to utilize these tools to learn how to become more culturally responsive.
Great.
That's interesting. The whole time you were talking, I was envisioning like a new door being opened, and like it's your choice where you step in and what you see through that door. Thank you, Dee. I'll repeat it. How does AI fundamentally change daily learning for diverse learners as compared to several years ago? Anything you're noticing from Dr. Lindsey?
Yeah, it's always interesting watching the evolution of an emerging technology, especially in hindsight, because you're like, remember when we were all looking at this thing this way? And then it started going, and I think in 2023 it was like the first wave was really like, oh my God, everyone's gonna cheat, right? And then the second wave was like, actually, maybe AI could personalize learning. But I echo what Dee said in that we have to be really careful, because we started looking at AI as this personalized tutor. And the problem is that if we don't understand algorithms and how those algorithms work on the back end, that personalization can lead to more inequity. And so there's a lot, I speak in Arizona to a lot of superintendents and leaders who are very excited about the possibility of AI, who don't really understand how AI works, and so it can be a little dangerous. And so I see now the third wave is this wave of really talking about AI literacy. We have to understand how it works. We have to understand the ethics. We have to be thinking about its impact, not just for an individual student, but for all students. And so I'm really pleased. And again, it's just interesting to see that evolution of our thinking. And I hope we continue to think along these lines and thinking about equity the way this panel was set up.
Absolutely. Thanks. All right, Todd, you're up.
All right, a quick question. How many of you guys here are teachers? All right. Okay, so you guys, and how many district administrators, campus administrators? So you guys know that some of the stuff that we're dealing with is the teacher burnout. We're dealing with trying to fill classrooms with teachers, and sometimes it's subs, and what do we have here? Alternative certified teachers coming in, and what they're still getting is like, we still need to differentiate for these students. How do we differentiate? And one of the things that we're doing in our district is we are providing as much as we can lessons, like things that are written out, kind of scripted out, because we do have people coming in and like they didn't go through traditional route, or they're not really coming with any kind of educational background. How do we get them to be able to serve these students? But they're still getting like, I've got a student that reads above grade level here. I got a student that's right at level. I got a student that's below level. I might have a special ed student. I might have even in some cases maybe even a GT student. How do we differentiate for all those students? How do we make learning relevant? And that's been a thing that we've always tried to struggle with. I'm dealing with this concept over here. I mean, how do I make this relevant to these kids to help them understand this is something important for you to know? So something just basic is like getting to the AI, and you're burnt out. you don't have time to think, and you don't have time to like, okay, how can I make this? It's like using AI just as a thought partner. Like, how can I make, I'm teaching this, blah, 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 blah. How can I make this relevant to my students? I have a student, and of course, we never put PII information in there, but I have a student who is reading at this level, and I want to help differentiate for him. And we're called to do all these, educators are called to do all these different things all at one time, and you get the help here. And we only have so many coaches, we only have so many instructional staff that can help along those lines. And here in Texas and probably wherever you are, the budgets, they're cutting those district staff. It's like, hey, we have a budget deficit, where do we cut? Well, we cut the district staff, and okay, that's great, but the district staff is what's supporting the campus staff. What do we do now? And so helping using AI to differentiate and just as a thought partner to ease that load, that cognitive load just a little bit, to be able to reach these students.
I would absolutely agree. It's been a pretty good thought partner for me, even if I don't agree, even if I question it. Just the idea that I'm seeing more and more people bouncing things back and forth with it is definitely a trend I'm noticing. But in terms of AI, there's almost like a step before all of this. So I'm coming to you, Dr. Lindsey. There's a big old step before all this, something to consider before all of this, because we often ask the question, how can AI help kids? How can AI help teachers? Especially kids with diverse needs. But we rarely ask the questions, how can our school systems improve so that when AI is brought, it can actually be effective and scalable? So I want to talk about like the before the AI. What types of things should schools start considering to improve so that when the AI comes, that it's equitable, it's scalable, it's actually solving problems and not causing it?
I love this question so much, thank you. And I really appreciate what you say, Todd, because you bring such a groundedness to this conversation. But I was gonna ask the same question, how many here are teachers, how many here are school or district administrators? And I was going to tell y'all that you have kind of gotten a raw deal. And what I mean by that is that to no fault of you, you have inherited, you are asked, you are called to meet the needs of all of your students and prepare them for life and work and citizenship in 2025. But you have inherited a system that was never designed to do that. It was never designed to meet the needs of all kids in a personalized manner. It was never set up for equity. It was never designed to prepare kids for life, citizenship, or work in 2025. And so you see there's like a rub there. And all of us, very well-intentioned folks in education, we keep trying to do the thing that will prepare all these kids in an equitable manner within a system that wasn't designed for it. And so what I do in my daily work is I really try to challenge the system. In fact, I want to tell you this little thing real quick. We did this exercise in Arizona. We had 60 people in September all come up to Northern Arizona University. They were superintendents, assistant superintendents, mostly curriculum folks, a few technology folks, community college leaders, deans of all 3 state universities, business and industry leaders, chambers of commerce, non-profit education directed leaders. And we put in front of them, we took 4 high school transcripts and we broke them apart, put them into little strips, and we said, can you differentiate, can you put together 4 transcripts? One is from 1931, one is from 1966, one is from 1979, and one of them is from 2024. And they struggled mightily to put them in the right order because they looked identical. And you want to know, there were only 2 things that differentiated these 4 transcripts from 1931 to 2024. That was language. Back then, took Latin, and now we take Spanish and other languages, not so much Latin, and the electives. The electives were more home ec related, and now they're a little bit more CTE related. Everything else on the transcript was literally identical. And so I ask the question all the time, in the current system, what is the definition of success? And if we don't get that right, then helping all students, diverse students, achieving success still isn't right, because we're not defining success right. And so I just would ask us to ask that question first, is our system designed, and are we asking what success means, right? Can we get that right first? Because if we design that right first, then all kids are gonna have a better chance of succeeding, not just differentiating for those who don't meet the definition of success in this current version. Thank you for letting me get on that soapbox.
No. Right. I was like, I never thought to pull up a kid's school schedule, a transcript, right, of all the classes they took from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and today. And I never thought that, like, the schedule itself, the courses we say you need to graduate, is a part of the system. And if those courses aren't aligned with what you're intending to do, which is educate all these diverse learners, then you have a fundamental problem before the AI.
Well, the system is all set up by, especially in high school, it's all by the Carnegie unit, right? Which was invented in 1906. And that drives our, a very 50-minute period. You need 4 of this, 3 of this to graduate, all of those things, graduation. And then you have to deal with college entrance. So we can't change high school graduation until colleges start accepting something different to admit students. And so it's the whole system is set up to stay exactly the way it is. And so we have to start breaking that down before we can make real transformational change.
And I like that. The first step is just a conversation, bringing together stakeholders in a room and doing activities like those to expose it and just start having the conversation. That's the first step. And for those of you who are joining us today, this could potentially be your first step. So thank you. Thank you, Doc. I'm gonna pass it to Dee next, and this is a really good caveat. As we talk about accessibility, it's sort of synonymous with equity. And this next question is about how do we ensure that our efforts in leveraging AI and accessibility and bringing it in and bringing in AI literacy don't inadvertently create the same digital divides we had before? So what are some things that you would say we should start considering as we integrate technology to make sure it's equitable and we're not
perpetuating
the divide that technology already has?
Yep. Whew. All right. First of all, I'll just hype this beat. There's so many things I could say about this, but consider, right, one, we need to be clear on our differentiation of terms and understanding, and then also knowing that we should not pigeonhole certain language in such a way that we don't think about the broader opportunity. And I just mentioned that because for some, the consideration of accessibility and equity just seem wait, what do those have to do with one another? Sit with that for a second. And definitely to consider the advantages and the power in things such as UDL, but then knowing that UDL does not equate equity. There's something missing if you are not aiming to solve additional issues that exist that are cultural and linguistic. So I just mentioned that, but then, so I'm gonna create a problem here in a second. So consider if I was mostly concerned about teaching AI literacy, and then I said, let's do this by teaching media literacy, but I have been not privy to my own biases and my own pedagogical biases. Let me give an example. So something I do very regularly, I'm gonna give you all just a very simple outline for Prompt Engineering 101, all right? So Prompt Engineering 101, you want to give it a persona, and then you want to give it a purpose, and then you want to add parameters. And then whatever the output is, you want to examine it, review, and then polish the results, right? Maybe go back and forth with some of those parameters. Is that clear? Okay, so you got that. Now, ask yourself this question. What could go wrong with this prompt? You have all the right intentions. Let me get this clear. You have all the right intentions to fill some of these gaps that Marcus just said. But listen closely, and I'm curious if anyone can identify some of the problems with this as a prompt, as an educator attempting to utilize AI for personalization needs of my students. All right. Act as a high school language arts teacher. That's a persona. Give me some strategies on how to teach Hamlet, okay? Well, let me give parameters. To students with different learning styles. Say it one more time. Listen for what could go wrong. Act as a high school language arts teacher. Give me some strategies on how to teach Hamlet to students with different learning styles. What could go wrong? And if it feels like a setup, it kind of is, but I'm just curious.
Well, go for it. Go for it.
Well, learning styles has been debunked. Yes. So I don't like it. It's still used so broadly, but it's been debunked, and I get tired of hearing that. So that's the first.
Thank you. What's your name?
Vicky.
Vicky, thank you.
From North Carolina.
From North Carolina, that's what's up. See,
If you didn't hear, I'm sorry, I'm not even using the mic. I'm so excited for Miss Vicky.
yeah.
Vicky said learning styles is almost a loaded term at this point. And so if you
It's been debunked multiple times over. And I'm gonna say something else that could sound controversial, but I also challenge the room to do the research in that learning styles was racist in its start, right? So if you're starting with an orientation that has been long since debunked, but it continues within our education system, like most people don't pause at the question of learning styles. I've heard it here at ISTE at least a couple of times outside my own mouth, aiming to do something about it. But it is a bias that will continue to be perpetuated if we are not unlearning some of the things that we have been taught, right? So to recognize that in and of itself may be a pedagogical bias that has been baked in our systems and continues to be perpetuated, and we can, with really great intentions and doing efforts to do things right, still do some of the things that can be wrong. Because here's the other thing, AI tools will oftentimes, they are designed to give you results, not to give you accuracy. If you ask for something in a certain way, oh, that's what you want, I got you. Without question of identifying what could be wrong with the question in and of itself. So we have to continue to build and to grow and to challenge our pedagogical biases and then aim to build our AI literacy skills in kind of solving some of these bigger issues.
Thanks. So to sum up that, I like that meander. I like that language just went in. I like that. To sum that up, you should be questioning yourself a little bit more, especially when you're prompting AI, because like you said, it is designed to give you a result. Whether it's right or wrong, it don't care. It is designed to give you a result. For instance, and on a positive note, on a personal note, if you really want to make yourself feel good, tell AI to compliment you because it will give you that. It will lie to you. It will be like, oh my God, you look amazing. You look amazing. You're great. You have food in your teeth. Your mascara can be running. Your hair is nappy. Love the unique hairstyle. So you bring up a good point that it is our best intention to meet the needs of the students with our prompts. But I don't think even I've taken a step back and questioned my own prompting, like how am I using terminology that's been fed to me? And then I also think another component of that is really digging into the data set that is training the AI model. Because you get whatever it knows. And so if you're not questioning what the AI tool knows, then you might be leaving that up to chance. So thank you, Dee. Thank you. Todd, I got a practical one for you. I got a practical one. You're a man, you're in a district, and a massive district at that. How many teachers, students, type here?
118,000 students. 9 to 10,000 teachers.
Oh, when you're looking at AI and implementing it at that big old scale, I'd like to know some unique challenges you might face in your district that maybe some of the smaller districts may not even be thinking of. So, big old district implementing AI, are there any unique challenges that you can speak to and share some pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, I don't know if they're unique. I just think they're at a bigger scale, right? One of the things that we've always dealt with instructional technology or ed tech is being able to get in front of all the teachers with all the new updates and all the things that are going on. This next year, Texas, if you're from Texas, you've heard of the SCOPE Act, House Bill 18. Cypress Fairbanks went hard for the law on that one, and they interpreted it very strictly. And we shared information with the principals, but the information didn't get back to all the campuses. So this year, they want me to do a 15-20 minute video, which allows me to talk to all the teachers all on the same day, the same 2 days. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm not going to ask permission. I am going to take a few minutes of that time to do some updates in the technology piece, because I never, ever, ever get that opportunity to be able to share that. A couple of years ago, we had a week of PD where everybody would cycle through like the district conference center, and we would get some of those teachers there, but even that has stopped. And so it's really hard. I mean, we try all the different things to get information out there. One of the unique challenges, I think, is being consistent. So we have schools that are at the highest, economic level, and then we have Title I schools and everything in between, and they all have different needs. My team, we have for 118,000 students, we have 3 ed tech coaches. 3 ed tech coaches, right? And so we were cut heavily last year. And so how do we deal with that? We're trying the best. We're creating a knowledge base. We're trying to, to take something from social media marketing. We are repurposing content as much as possible. We do virtual conferences. We have a big virtual conference in July that anybody can attend. We have people from all over the world attend. We also do virtual, but I mean, we've got all different kinds of needs. Some teachers want face-to-face. Some teachers want a one-pager PDF so that they can follow along with. We have some people that want the night owls that want to be able to do, any kind of learning in the middle of the night. And we have everything in between. So trying to stay consistent to get everybody that baseline, which we find is a big struggle, right? Some of the other things is just finding the time to train and getting out there. I would suggest that you just take a little bit of time to meet the needs of the teachers. We do a needs assessment, and again, that's something that I've gotten to the point, I guess, in my career where I'm not asking permission as much anymore, and I'm just sending things out and getting needs assessments from the teachers and trying to figure out what do they need. And we are taking our PD and we are aligning the PD to that. So hopefully that helps a little bit there.
It does. I feel like the 2 nuggets that I pull from that is communication and consistency. I like this idea because I'm very rebellious myself, of doing what you have to do because you know it's right. And I have to communicate with these schools. I have to communicate. The updates happen so quickly. AI is changing so quickly. So I'm looking forward to you making your YouTube debut.
Well, we've been there. We've been there for a while. You've been there.
I have.
You've been there.
I have.
So yeah. So Cami has been a great partner to come and to share a lot. And so one of the things we're looking forward to this next for our digital learning conference is some of the new things that are happening with Cami. And so to be honest, I know that I'm not going to be able to get in front of all those teachers before the beginning of the school year. So I'm counting on Cami bringing it, right? Elsa will come and she'll bring it, but we'll also take that and repurpose that video in many different ways.
Awesome. I'm gonna veer a little off because I like the eyebrow raising of the audience. So does anybody in the audience have unique or challenges, things happening with implementing AI with a focus on accessibility? Anybody having unique challenges you want to share, pearls of wisdom? Yes, sir. Tell us where you're from.
I'm a teacher librarian at Missouri School for the Blind, and we're a state entity, and a lot of districts and organizations everywhere get a lot of things are blocked a lot. There's restrictions. I really appreciate what you guys said about risk taking and not asking for permission as much. But the other scary part of that is that can get people fired, and if you're not careful. So how do you balance that need to fight for what the rights that your students might need versus doing it the wrong way? Because you also become perhaps too strong, that can push people away that you're trying to work in. So how do you balance that? Take the break.
Being cautious with the red tape, jumping over it one day, jumping behind it the next. Any advice for navigating almost like the politics of your role?
I hate politics. I'm right there with you. That's one reason why I never want to move up from where I'm at, because I know I'm going to be dealing with even more politics. But I guess it's knowing where to push, being familiar enough with the district to know I can push here, and maybe this right here, I know that if I'm going to be called into the principal's office if I go over here and I push too hard over there. Knowing the needs to be able to go back, my supervisor and my associate, they're all about data. So if I can pull some kind of data and say the reason I'm doing this is because I know that teachers are asking for this or they need this, and if I can do that, that helps a lot there. And relationships with some of the people at the top, I think that's always helpful. And they get to a point where they start to trust you, right? So you're able to share with them. They trust you. You're like, okay, we didn't see it that way, but we trust you, we believe you, so we'll go ahead and go with this. And can I add one more thing? You never want to put your supervisor in a position that they don't know, so that when the community or the board or the superintendent comes after it and they're in a real bad spot, right? You still want to kind of keep them informed, kind of keep them in the loop, even if it's just a little bit.
Can I add on to that?
I would love to.
When you were talking, Todd, I was like, yes, that's right. No permit, bypass permission, just do what you gotta do. And then this beautiful question from the audience causes me to step back and rethink and weigh both sides. And so I just want to share a little bit about what's on my mind is, there's a huge difference between going rogue and doing what's right. And I think that in the case of doing what's right, particularly, at your school, very much so and very obviously, but for all of us, we need to do what's right for our students. And a lot of times, the people who are afraid to give us that permission, it's for really good reasons. They're scared of data privacy, they're scared of compliance issues, which could lead to defunding issues, which could lead to being the headline on the news, right? That's why they don't give permission. And so if we understand what those things are and we can address them right from the get-go, then I would be inclined to go to whomever and say, got all these things figured out, now watch me do my thing. Watch me. And you don't have to give permission to everyone, watch me do my thing and watch these kids grow. And they'll be impressed, I think.
Yeah.
And if they're not and they still say no, maybe that's not a person I'd want to work with.
My advice, I call it run a scenario. Run a scenario, spell it out and play it out for the person that you're trying to get a permission or approval from, and running this versus that. If we continue it this way, this is what's going to happen. But I have an option.
Can I add?
Yes, sir.
Because I think often, let me first just say, I want to confess, I'm running towards being out of the classroom longer than I've been in the classroom. So next year will mark that time, and that's just weird to me. Still working with teachers. So I want to give that caveat, so if anyone wants to say, okay. But nonetheless, some of the things I used to do back in my day, in recognizing, there's certain policies that are put in place, and we know the reason why certain policies were put in place, but those policies are just like immediate blocks. And some of what I would do in my setting in order to at least seek for some permission was to look at what research says. I'll give two very, very small things. They're basically benign, but they were policies in our school. Teachers couldn't play music, and students couldn't chew gum. And then I challenged both with research. And number one, so what studies have been done concerning classical music and jazz in helping and encouraging learning and memorization? Because unfortunately, I have to put in the memorization because we also have these high-stake tests. Okay. And what does the same say about chewing of gum? Right. So if I know that the policy is put in place because it's an issue of some kids putting gum up under the desk, I want to at least challenge but you have this other thing that I know you care a whole lot about, and that is about the student learner outcome. And we know that how you are assessing that is through these high-stake tests. So what if I give you some research that says that actually doing this helps improve that? Does that make any difference? Right, so those are a couple of small examples of I was told yes in those examples. I was told no plenty of times, but then there's also the consideration for every teacher. I'm speaking to the teacher and recognizing that if you are engaging in any form of in civil disobedience, that is with recognition of consequence. And I say this regularly where I go and saying, sometimes we say and do things and we know that there is a consequence, and you have to understand what that consequence is, and you have to be willing to actually face it and then to broadcast to others what happened. So those are just some general things. But I'll probably just end on, I think we have to fight for the things that we know we value most, and sometimes we have to work around things. Sometimes we have to work over things. Sometimes we have to work under them. So, for instance, if I know that in my school district, they only allow us to use this AI tool because that's the one that's been approved by the district, and it's blocked on all student devices. They try to do this, this, and this. Okay, but that is still playing into the game, so to speak. I see it as my responsibility to teach AI ethics to kids because I know, I don't have to question it. I know that they're going to go home and they're going to utilize a different device. They're going to be on another network and they're going to use a different tool. Have I been focusing on the utilization of the tool ethically, or have I just been playing the game of you can do this, you can't do this, these are instances where you can do, and I've never actually taught the things that are most valuable to them, which is ethics.
Thanks. I like that little meandering we did. That was good. That was really good. Shout out to anybody who's ever challenged a policy or has been the reason for a policy.
A reason for a policy.
It was me. Okay, you were the gum. Okay, I was the teacher tattoo policy. Back in the day, I don't know if anybody still has a policy about visible tattoos, but I was like, I'm getting this tattoo. I'm getting this tattoo. Do you want a high quality, happy, certified instructor who loves fashion? Give me a tattoo. And the policy changed. So that's a small example of choose your battles and understand the consequences before you choose that battle. And AI is going to be a battle for some of us, especially those of us who are here, because you're getting an accelerated knowledge and understanding of its potential. And you're going to go back to your districts, and you're going to be met with people who didn't come here, who are going to be like, what, huh? So just take some of the sage advice, because I think it's going to help all of us politely challenge the status quo. I'm going to round it out and start wrapping it up for us. We're running low on time, but this one's good for everybody. This one's good for everybody. I want y'all to, yes, sir.
So I've been intrigued with the things that you've shared on equity with respect to learning differentiation, access, and to some degree, institutional. And if AI, due to, if AI has this widespread access, and I'm coming from higher education nowadays. I was a history teacher in the town of Uncle Sam, and I was an administrator throughout New York State. But I've been a university professor. So my concern really is from the lens of being a university professor. With the widespread access to AI, I see at the university level there's a threat to work originality and academic dishonesty. So can you comment on how AI can be properly used not to violate work originality and academic dishonesty?
Well, baby, that's an hour-long conversation right there, okay? So what I'll do is this. If any person wants to take it, give me like maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. And then if y'all want to have a follow-up, we can hang out in the hallway and talk about it a little more.
I'll share 30 seconds.
Oh, you want to go first?
I'll share 30 seconds back.
I'm also a professor, so you're speaking to my heart, and I work at Northern Arizona University as adjunct for the University of Illinois and Philadelphia Community College, and these are conversations that are suffocating, actually. They're prevalent, they're important, and they're suffocating also. So I'm gonna be really brief because actually this could be a whole panel in and of itself, but I think I'll validate the fact that these are the questions that are persisting in higher education, and they're persisting at a strength more so than K-12, actually.
Yeah.
Okay? Because higher education is the institution at even a higher level. So I'll validate you there, and I won't end with an answer to that question, because I think I would go off in I would go off. But I will say this, that you've asked the question that has to be asked in order to break that system, right? If AI challenges the notion of academic integrity and all of those things in such a way that it is disturbing to so many people, then instead of challenging the AI, let's challenge the academic integrity. And let's challenge what we define, again, as success of our students and learning of our students. And I won't today go into all of the ways in which we can do that. Dee and Todd could probably speak to that even at a more grounded level, but I say it is not a chance to interrogate the AI. It is a chance and an opportunity to interrogate the way we are defining success and what we are asking students to do, to perform, to show evidence of success. Yes, I agree.
We actually had this conversation yesterday, so I'll share just
So I said nothing new.
No. We were having this conversation, and I want maybe partial credit to why you're here, right? And wanting still, this is still the pressing question. I'll say a couple of things, and hopefully they do not come across as platitudes. One, I said we have to teach AI ethics, but I didn't define it. And let me just say, back before AI was a thing, I was teaching ethics in a business class. And ethics, the 3 questions that every individual and every institution and every corporation should be asking about whether or not something is ethical is it against the law? What if someone did this to me? And am I sacrificing the long term for a short term gain? The is it against the law is the part that at least, and currently I see as most challenging right now in this gray area moment that we're in, because what we want to do is say, well, utilizing AI for this sake is plagiarism, and that's cheating, and plagiarism is a legal term, and in most institutions in their law schools, they define plagiarism as taking someone else's work and using it as your own. AI is not a person, but AI, depending on the tool, the model, how it works, is oftentimes plagiarizing from individuals, right? And so it comes back to teaching ethics and teaching literacy, because unfortunately, what is happening, and it's happening on a K-12 level, and I'm definitely assuming it's happening in the higher ed level, is that there's just a lot of what I've been given is something I don't care much about. And so this is the hoop that I must jump through in order to get to the thing that I do care about. And until we challenge the system in that way to start centering things on learning about and growing in things that I care about, and writing not being the only measurement of assessment that we have. And I think there's a whole nother categorical question that I am not qualified to answer as it pertains to research and the academic integrity of the institution for publishing articles. But I will say, it's not new, because I know of multiple instances of institutions of being found for having inaccurate or fraudulent research work, right? So it's still a problem, it's a pervasive problem, it's a continuing problem. But I think we need to teach ethics. I think we need to gather all of our rights holders together, listen to perspectives. I think we need to be much more culturally responsive. And I think that we need to be assessing more than just writing.
Let's jump into the future. Let's jump past figuring out this plagiarism and this this integrity issue. Well, it may persist, but let's jump forward 10 years. Let's jump forward 10 years. Take a moment, close your eyes and dream. Dream. How do you envision this panel, universities, K-12 schools, how do you envision something about AI and accessibility 10 years from now? What do you envision being different? I'll start at the end with Todd, and then we'll work our way to you, Duke.
So, one of the things, and not just necessarily in the increase of it, but just let me say a couple of things that are concerning me right now, just in education, is the funding, right? I'm very concerned of where we are going. For me, education is the great, it's the equalizer, right? I had a grandfather who had a 5th grade education. He was great in business. He was, he did really well for himself. And I wonder what would have happened if he would have been able to go to school and finish high school, go to college, all that kind of stuff. He did really great for himself. But what would have happened there? And we have people from we take everybody in education, right? In public education. So what's going to happen if we have the haves and the have-nots? We try really hard in our school district to not do that. We have technology, and the same technology in the high-end schools that we have in the low-end schools. We work really, really hard to do that. But what's going to happen with this funding? Where we're going to be? That's my big concern right now. I'm excited about where we are in this day and age, because there's a lot of, we've already said it from the panel already, a lot of opportunities. I think one of the things that districts are going to need to think about is, I think because of the budgets, because of where we are, your tech stack is going to get more narrow as we go. I know that I've had to cut, because I purchased the software, I've had to cut some really big software partners, and maybe they weren't the best partners. So one of the things that I value are those really strong partners, those relationships that we're able to say, hey, you know what, they're gonna be there, they're gonna help. If I don't have the staff to do the training, like we mentioned in the last, one of the last questions, they're willing to step up and say, hey, we will provide that training, we will help, we will be there, what do you need? How can we make your district successful with this implementation? The vendors, if you are in any kind of a situation where you are able to have any kind of say with any of the vendors that you're dealing with, if they are coming from a point of view of, hey, thank you for, you paid the invoice, and here is your software, and we'll catch you next year. That kind of stuff, that needs to go. And I think, especially here in Texas, I think we're just gonna get very narrow in our tech stack. So you've got to leverage those. And that's why I appreciate people like Cami. They're great. And I'm not just saying that because this is the Cami panel. I've talked about Cami before when it's just me presenting in other places. I have friends back there with Discovery Ed. They're really great partners as well. And so it's one of those things that in the future, I think you're going to have to leverage those relationships. If you don't have those relationships, regardless of what we're talking about, you're going to have to, I think you're going to have to get to a point where you're just going to have to choose to sever them. And that's hard, but I think that's where we are.
I see that already happening. 10 years from now, the playing field is going to be narrow. It's going to be fewer players on the field because people take the relationships and the partnerships for granted. So thanks, Don. 10 years from now, what you predicting?
So I don't necessarily want to predict, I'd rather imagine.
Ooh.
And I start a lot of sessions talking about Alice in Wonderland. My whole office at work is decorated in Alice in Wonderland. Is my favorite quote, and she says, why sometimes I have believed 6 impossible things before breakfast. It's such a great quote, right, about change. Anyways, so I'm gonna dream a little bit. And I have so many answers when I dream about what education could look like if only this, and this weren't there, right? And what I envision as that is probably the same things that you're envisioning, right? So like we all want more project-based learning and inquiry-based learning and relationships, and we want to break the silos, we want interdisciplinary, and we want caring relationships. Like we want all those things, right? We want all those things. Everyone in this room wants those things, so I'm not gonna belabor that. But here's the thing. Instead of me talking about what I dream about for what education can look like when we break the system, it is better if I ask students, teachers, families, what do you need education to look like to serve you? And then take a note from our higher education partners and our business and industry, what do we need post high school? But like really asking students, if this is where we want to go, what does that need to look like for you? And so I think that's a better way to go about this. Instead of me spouting my vision, how can we continue to elevate community voice to drive change together with and without technology? And by the way, for vendors also. Vendors, and by the way, Cami does a great job actually of building tools that put the student in charge of their learning, that could, if that's the way, they're used, right? And so we need more of that, and we need more tools that to Dee's point, stop giving us more of what we don't want, right? We don't want to perpetuate that practice. We want to empower students, and I think that's what Cami's tools do. So anyways, vendors too, like, listen, we want to listen to the community, we want to come together and have a conversation.
More listening,
Yeah, more listening.
for sure. All right, round us out.
Well, number one, now I have a new best friend. So everything is an amen right next to her. So thank you, Ann. I mean, can I be honest? I'm terrified. Will we make it 10 years? Can I just be honest? I'm terrified we're going to make it. I'm terrified. What is the state of the United States going to be in 10 years? Are we going to make it 2 years? These are real fears. I mean, I really, literally mean those are my fears. I also know that there are students in buildings who have, prior to any of this, would say, yeah, they can't imagine 10 years from now because they just don't have enough life experience to be able to look back 10 years to think about what could be 10 years ahead. So, I would like to shorten the time frame a little bit to say, 2 to 4 years, and just ask the question, number one, what is a problem that deeply affects you and in your community that you care about, that you would like to see changed? And I could envision teachers and students and caregivers all engaging in serious challenges that they experience and say we want to be part of the solution to solving those things. And then doing the adequate research and also engaging with the compassion and empathy that is necessary in order to engage those problems, and then to think of certain solutions that could be used, and then to share those solutions in very bold, non-traditional ways. I just shared, a design thinking framework that involves multiple stakeholders, I like to call rights holders, and I think it can involve AI, but here's the thing. If the problems that exist in our society are not looked at as problems that have to be solved, and it does not include an entire community to solve them, then things will remain as they are, and then they will continue to go however they go, and that includes no regulation of AI for the next 10 years, and that should be a concern. And so that is a problem that I would like to see solved, and that I would love to be able to team up with others and help solve that problem within my one sphere of influence. And right now, my number one sphere of influence vocationally is in education. And so how I get to contribute in aiming to solve that problem, I'm going to continue to do so, and I want to do as much as I can to motivate others to be real world problem solvers. And AI is just a new part of that equation.
All right, friends. I really appreciate the three perspectives today. Can we get a round of applause for our kiddo? Now y'all got my mind twirling and you got me thinking. My prediction is we basically in a battle of the search engines. Y'all remember Dog Pile? Ask Jeeves, y'all looking? That's what it's feeling like right now. So I feel like the playing field is gonna get really narrow. That's my lighthearted sort of prediction. But go ahead, fall in love with Ask Jeeves, y'all. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy his tea. Again, I'm Marcus. I have to head downstairs. I'm delivering a keynote at our Cami booth with our CEO right now. So I'm a little late for that. He'll be fine. If any of you want to head down there, we're going to continue the conversation about how we're incorporating AI. Thank you so much, y'all. Happy ISTE. Make a friend. High five somebody. Thank you.